Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for being with us this afternoon. I'll do some of you heard my welcome remarks already, but for those who are new, I'm Brynn Saito, and I'm a faculty member here at Fresno State in the Creative Writing program, and this is our third annual Fresno Writers Summit. I'm also the coordinator of the Fresno Poets Association. Before we get started, I'd just like to acknowledge that we're hosting today's events on the traditional homelands of the Yokuts and Mono peoples. And the Fresno Writers Summit is a collaboration between the FPA and the Fresno State Creative Writing Alumni Chapter. So I'd like to acknowledge the Alumni Committee, Jefferson Beavers, Angela Chides Vincent, Karissa Ellison, Yia Lee, Mike Maniquiz, Laura Flores, Stella Luna Villas, Callie Camara, Melinda Medeiros, and Sam Hitty Tripp, as well as the Fresno Poets Association donors for helping to make today possible. Thank you also to the Creative Writing Program student assistants, Angelina Leaños and Taylor Seals, as well as Corinne, Nicole, and Maddie from the Alumni Association, and also Amanda and student assistant Jay for your help today at the Smittcamp Alumni House. I'm now going to introduce fantastic writers and alumni committee members who will be introducing our featured writers this afternoon. So eventually you will hear from Mike Maniquiz, Yia Lee, and Karissa Ellison, and I believe Mike is up first, yes? Please join me in welcoming Mike Maniquiz.
So, welcome, and I am introducing Kimberly Vargas Agnese. Kimberly Vargas Agnese's full-length manuscript, Red String on a Saguaro Cactus, was a finalist for the 2022 Andres Montoya Poetry Prize, awarded by the Institute for Latino Studies at the University of Notre Dame. Her debut poetry collection, Kadupul Flower, is available outside from Green River Writers Press. It is, according to the poet Juan Felipe Herrera, a poetic memoir and a call for a whole interconnection with nature, ancestors, family, self, and migrant realities in the San Joaquin Valley. Agnese is a Chicano poet, and her work has been published in Anaqua Literary Arts Journal, The Seventh Wave, Awakened Voices, Rappahannock Review, and the Clay Jar Review. For over 30 years, she has resided in Fresno, California. There is sensitivity to her poetry, and it's a poetry about the earth, and one can argue a spirituality that attends to those that belong to it, be it the plants, the water, and especially the people who work it. But I don't want to spoil it for you, so please join me in welcoming Kimberly Vargas Agnese.
Thank you for inviting me to be part of this year's debut author panel. The hope for my upcoming poetry collection, Kadupul Flower, is that it will reflect a sense of resilience and dignity. And what better landscape to explore these themes against than the landscape found in Fresno, California. 5 of the poems I will be reading today will appear in my forthcoming collection. Within this presentation and some of my poetry, you might find that I'm employing the voice of a speaker I don't necessarily agree with. This is just my attempt to advocate, to shed light on certain attitudes, certain issues within our society. That said, I also want to share that due to a case of COVID a couple of years ago, the vision in my right eye was affected negatively. So please bear with me if I seem to struggle at points during this reading. Crazy world we're living in right now, huh? Weapons replacing words, and people being killed in the name of politics in spite of the fact that we all breathe the same air. Division seems to have become a global anthem. And yet no matter how much we eschew another, a thread of sap runs through all of us, through each and every life force found on this glorious planet. So why not look for the wonder and dignity in another's eyes? within our families and our neighborhoods, within our fields and in our streets. In the spirit of this, I will be including a dedication before each poem, and this is my first. Before my best friend became my literary agent, she was my beautiful, just home from college daughter, working at her first library position out in Southwest Fresno. This poem is for you, Stephanie. Red strings. My toes sweat against the plastic of 99-cent flip-flops as I scurry across the parking lot and into the grocery store, around tables piled with strawberries picked by immigrants, up and down familiar aisles, glancing at discounted bags of already diced cactus, thumping watermelon. I stand in line and wait for my favorite cashier to ask how I'm doing. Hot, I pant. What's this? This isn't hot. I grew up in Mexico. She holds up an aloe vera leaf I plan to put in a smoothie. You know, if you tie a red string around this plant, it will keep you safe. This, it costs too much. Come to my house and I will give you some. Her fingers move quickly, penning her phone number onto my receipt. Call me. I thank her, then shove the purchases inside a plastic bag, push the cart out of store-bought air conditioning, and weave back through the parking lot, sandals flapping like a bird. I wilt a little as I load the truck of the SUV where my daughter sits. Long blonde hair dangling over a berry-stained Bible, the color of her favorite sweater, of heart stickers on the name tags at her best friend's quince, of salsa served at the orientation for her library tech job out in Easton. A little boy asked for one, she says, thumbing through the pages, but I'm not sure if I'm allowed to bring it. She balances the book on her lap, and I drive, because that's what you do when you're on food stamps. And there's not enough money for extra car insurance. You drive back and forth every day, past fields of migrant workers catching sweat beads and bandanas so your daughter can read to children who no longer live in Mexico, who work with their parents, picking tomatoes after school and get out of bed before chickens start pecking gravel on the side of the road. They pick, you drive. She brings a little boy, something red. Thank you. Washington has been talking a lot about cleaning up our streets lately, but I haven't seen any of the administration hitting the asphalt with either a can of Ajax or a mop. Have you? No. After much brainstorming and deliberation, Washington has decided that one of the ways to clean up our cities is to move all unauthorized tents and people to an appropriately designated rescue mission. And I guess this makes sense, since like some of my ancestors, one would have to be a savage or crazy to not want to be able to live in some kind of governmentally approved dwelling. It seems like those in power believe that it is a home, not a heart, that makes us human, a home, not a heart, that makes us worthy of being treated with respect. This next poem is for those who I've been honored to call friends, who don't fit into that rubric. The poem I'm about to read originally appeared in Common Ground Review. Nameless. You could tell it was him by the clothes he lived in. The t-shirt that was supposed to be white, now the color of bushes on the side of the bike trail. Jeans slack from walking and sleeping, hard-pressed to use the bathroom, brush his teeth, let alone wash socks, if he has any. Air around him fermenting fruit. But then again, our neighborhood smells like that when steam puffs out of smokestacks from the winery on Clovis Avenue. Everyone knows about it. And the meth house on the corner of the street, the squad cars, the helicopters, the megaphones, the woman in the white van calling out to anyone who will listen, tamales, tamales. But we don't know him, even though we've seen him 100 times. He's just the guy who walks up and down Clovis Avenue where the old railroad used to run. Back in the 1930s, my family says, Grandpa was a bum hopping trains across the country. I wonder how his chin looked in the summer. Did he shave? Or let it grow like the old weedy beard on this guy, walking underneath canopies of ash trees where even birds have the right to build nests? Did he whistle? The skin across his cheeks stretching like metal on the bed of a highbrow truck? Or apologize for climbing over the invisible barbed wire fence planted around homeowners associations? Did he ever get so tired of being nameless that he walked up to someone, anyone, a mother, a father, a shop owner, stick out his hand and say, "Hello, my name is Douglas"? Did they take the tweed of his palm, look into his eyes, talk about the weather, or hide behind the twigs around their eyes until he hid too, behind the brush on the side of the road, hugging the home within his ribcage? I hope to God that didn't happen. I hope he tipped his hat, slicked sweat, dark feathers out of his face, chuckled like a mockingbird, jutted out his chin, grinned so big they could see each pearl-handled tooth, nodded to say, "Nobody owns the sky." Thank you. You guys are great. This is my first time. I haven't had to deal with a microphone in maybe 20 or 30 years. Thank you so much. Thank you. Through the bars. Or actually, the inspiration for this came during a moment in prayer where a description from the book of Revelation met the suffering of those without homes. It's called Through the Bars. A bird-winged shadow falls through the bars in my grocery cart, hovers over the runoff water spilling into the gutter, muddied with broken bottles, a takeout bag, and a used condom flung out of a car window. A throng of shoelaces and white socks pause at the puddle forming around my bare feet. High step and cross to the side of the road, where manicured fingers set up lawn chairs and flimsy signs protesting injustice. I stand up to scrub the spaces between my toes and the sprinklers watering the shrubs behind me until the palms of my feet grow pink above the pulse of the earth. Overhead, an F-16 formation tears through the sky and the earth trembles. Through the shutters of my eyes, I remember Mama inside her kitchen rolling biscuits, stringing socks on the clothesline next to our vegetable garden. Across the street, little ones bury their heads in their mother's laps. When the rumbling stops, they whine for helados. My footprints bake unheard in the commercial plot as I kneel in the grass, looking for feathers to weave through the dreadlocks surrounding my temples beneath the wool of my hair. My face ripens in the sun. As an environmental and social justice advocate, I fight for what I believe would make the world a better place. But I also really long for peace. Years ago, while getting to know some people without homes, I met a wonderful man named Ron who saw beyond the harm that our society had dealt him and had written a song about how he wished that we could all just get along. I think he would have approved this poem. So this one is for you, Ron. Notes from a neighborhood meeting. Everybody knows that between the cement walls of the Friant Kern Canal, water flows through the San Joaquin Valley, irrigating farmland. So that's not what we talked about at our last neighborhood association meeting. What concerned us was the homeless guy who lived under the bridge, hanging his clothes on a makeshift laundry line, how he climbed over the dilapidated fence boards behind Mrs. Day's house to camp out while she was watering her plants one night, accidentally spraying him. I guess he didn't want to get wet, what with the weather getting colder and warmth being so hard to come by. And being a widow, she couldn't really afford to take up with a crazy man running around her yard yelling obscenities. Of course, the sheriff needed to be called so he could chase the guy to the other side of the tracks where homeless people are allowed to exist if they can make it through the night without being killed. Maybe Phil, whose hair is the color of the streets he sweeps, was right when he said that it would be nice if we'd all offer to share garbage cans with each other. You know, act like neighbors. As a former youth pastor, special educator, and literacy coach, I've had the immense privilege of working with Valley children for over 30 years and have come to believe that to some degree we all carry knowledge. And to some degree we all carry a beautiful, blissful, and sometimes harmful ignorance. The more knowledge I acquire, the more I understand what I have not yet become. But I think that's okay, isn't it? Because like a forest of trees, winds keep sweeping across our limbs, teaching us about seasons yet to come, and so we learn. My next reading is, to my mind, an advocacy poem for those who have been displaced within our society, for those without homes and those without habitat. And I dedicate it to all the beautiful innocence, which sometimes carries ignorance, to all we don't yet understand, for all who grow. Meadowlarks. Olivia presses all 6 years of herself into the back of the chair and opens the box of Whoppers Mama bought for her at the concession stand, where they sell popcorn and sodas to everyone except the skinny lady outside who doesn't have any money. So all she gets to do is watch feathers and feet pick at garbage under the smoky sky. Before the feature starts, a boy spills a bunch of popcorn, enough to fill that hungry woman's beak, and then some. But Mama says, sit and watch the movie. So Olivia stares at white clouds and wheat fields until a bird jumps, and she has to ask, why is this cheek covered in soot? And Mama says, that's just a meadowlark. Don't see as many of those around here as we used to. Olivia sticks the Whopper, a malt ball the color of dirt, the shape of the world, in her mouth, sucks the earth right off it and says, oh, I forgot. Years ago, my daughter and I ran into a friend of ours outside of Winco. I don't think she was holding a cardboard sign that day, like she often did to ask passerbys for change that might help feed her dog. No, this day she was waiting for a friend to come pick her up to go to another friend's house for Thanksgiving. We chatted for a while, and then she pulled all of the change out of her pocket, about 6 quarters, held them out to us and said, for your Thanksgiving. Somebody needs to explain to me how these people who are judged for having so little are willing to give so much of what they have when those who have so much refuse to, and how that makes them less. Surely the great walk among us unseen. This poem is for Lisa. It's called When TV Land is On in the Restaurant. In 2023, it's still thoroughly charming to watch Wally Cleaver scoop ice cream on TV Land, Flipper fly off the coast of Florida, and the homeless woman outside the window beyond Leave It to Beaver's white picket fence. Fred and Ethel need 3 months rent in advance. Her blonde, unwashed hair presses against stucco. Lucy bets Ricky she can go without modern conveniences longer than he can. I step outside. On the other side of the stone, cashiers dole out coins to aprons, frying burgers before picking up children, demanding Nintendos. But all Lucy wants is to dance in Ricky's night show. Do you want some of these? The homeless woman asks, like a schoolyard friend hiding in a concrete tunnel. From the valley of her palm, from the kitchen in her hand, she offers cold French fries. They could have been Skittles. I slide down the wall and say, yes. The concluding poem that I will read doesn't have a home yet, so I don't know its address. It might be welcomed into a lit journal. It might reside in a new collection. Its heartbeat includes Indigenous advocacy, its ultimate meaning, the nobility inherent in each individual. And I want to dedicate this one to everyone here. Thank you for sharing a few of your precious breaths here on earth with me. It's called Beneath This Fertile Soil. Beneath mineral-bearing stars, Miwok ponds reflect white feathers under bluebird wings. Water rises, the people gather salt in baskets. 49ers camp along the San Joaquin River, inoculate flour with wild yeast, flush ore through lungs of salmon. Sugar pines sing death songs. Indian blood severs from bones. Beneath this fertile soil, precious metals mingle. Roots hold royal cedar. Rhizomes pour strawberry wine. All of us. The newborn screaming in the hospital, the bark brown man selling flowers at the intersection, the thug who shook that old lady down across the street, politicians, protesters, and those who breathe before us, even our breath holds gold. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kimberly. I loved your reading, and thank you for that. So I am pleased to introduce Roh Spaulding, author of the beautifully written historical fiction novel Helen Button, or if you're French, I believe you say Ellen without the H. There is a sense of timelessness about Helen Button. I am reminded in reading this book about our world today, where we live in a country deeply divided, where political ideologies clash even within the family unit, where unrest can result in violence. People we look up to might reveal themselves to be frauds, and we might look at ourselves in times of great historical trouble and discover that we might not rise to the occasion. The characters in Helen Button lived through World War II, witnessing the rise of the Nazis and the persecution of the Jews. Decades later, they witnessed anti-immigrant discrimination and police brutality in France that explodes into violent riots. We see how individuals face up against the great injustices of the world and sometimes fail. As the protagonist Elena says, it is painful to be ordinary, to be at the mercy of history with no accounting for your inaction in the face of extraordinary circumstances that compelled no greater choice from you. It is painful to recognize that you lacked the courage or the imagination to hope for more. Yes, sometimes when you and I are scared or confused, we may not rise to the occasion. We may not be heroes, but if there's a chance to be better in the future, take it. This novel reaches to us today as we experience our own political divide, as we witness the rise of anti-immigrant, anti-woman, anti-gay, anti-trans policies. It's scary. This book reminds me that it is important for us to look at the social injustices, and even if there's a moment where we feel that we can't fight or protest, we must always remember. We remember to be better in the future. This is an eloquently, beautifully written book that touched me deeply, and I'm honored to welcome Roh Spaulding, who is also the author of Waiting for Mr. Kim and Other Stories, winner of the Flannery O'Connor Award for Short Fiction from the University of Georgia Press, and Ellen Button, winner of the Eludia Award from the Hidden River Arts. She is a professor at Drake University and lives with her husband in Granger, Iowa. Please join me in welcoming Roh Spaulding.
Question for Jefferson, and thank you so much for organizing this and for welcoming me. It's much appreciated. Am I supposed to read from Helen Button?
You can read from whatever you like.
Okay, so my debut book is Waiting for Mr. Kim, and I would actually like to read the first story from this book, if y'all don't mind. First, I wanted to say a couple of things. Number one, I am very proud to be from Fresno State. After hearing those young people read earlier, amazing. I was really, really impressed. Secondly, I want you to know that when I used to sit in Professor Henson's American Literature class, I tell my students this all the time. I would look at the clock, okay? But I would look at it because I didn't want it to be over, and I wanted to know how much time we had left before the class was going to end. So Waiting for Mr. Kim, so the first story in this collection, I actually asked my editor if I could add it after the collection won. And so she agreed to stuff this story in before publication, and I'm so glad that she did. It is a story that's based on my grandmother's experience of her early years of immigration, or her first year of being in the States. So I wrote this book to sort of find my way into my Korean American heritage. I'm the granddaughter of Korean immigrants, and I remember Jean Pickering actually suggesting that I might want to look at my ethnic past as a source of writing fiction. At that time, I didn't know that that was okay. I thought that there would be no one who would be interested in hearing stories about my Korean American heritage. So the title story is Waiting for Mr. Kim is based on a little seed that my mother told me, which is that she was betrothed at the age of 14 to a little Korean man that she was expected to marry. Because all of the children were expected to marry Koreans. None of them did. And so the title story is about how she got out of that. But the story I'm going to read, so it starts the collection, and the collection moves through a century. And so every story has a very, very different feel. And the first story is a woman based on my grandmother, who her name is Chung Mi in the story. And she is with her little boy in 1924, wondering how the hell she got here and how she is going to figure out the rest of her life, because she can't go home because she would never get back in. In 1924, immigration was cut off from all Asian nations until 1965. So I come from a very old Korean family. Most Koreans you meet came after 1965 in my part of the country, which is the Midwest. And so I just try to imagine what it was like to be her, to feel stuck and to not be able to get home. And so it is sort of an homage to her. Is this good, Jefferson, with the, can you hear me okay? Okay. It's called The Day of the Swallows, 1924. I sit on my clean floor and count with little Jew. The child is almost too clever. I say 1 and 2 make 3. He sees the pear and the apples in my hand and says, pear plus apples make fruit. No, perform the sum. He frowns to have to do it my way. 3 fruits equals happiness, Mama, he says. Outside our window, they're building a tower. From here on the floor, I see little men working on scaffolding way up in the sky. It is another day in America. Back home, it is the 3rd day of the 3rd moon, the day of the swallow's return. The day precisely 1 year ago, my mother wept to see my younger sisters fighting among ourselves over the few possessions I would leave behind in the private room I shared with little Jew. Pieces of my memory of 1 year ago today add up to nothing whole. Ship plus woman equals horizon, yellow plus mountain equals sky, salt plus hunger make wind. These sums are not the mysteries they seem. Here's a mystery for you. Each year, a bird no bigger than a man's heart knows how to return home from across the ocean. Perhaps some of them return to the very nests of the year before, wedged between twigs in the treetops, the bits of straw and earth still crusty with snow and faintly scented with the puke and down and shit of the last crop of babies. Here's an even greater mystery, that my sensible head should have become cluttered with dreams. What tremendous faith you place in the future, old Moonji had smiled with her crooked mouth. Get sick and die, is what I ought to have said to her. Since I would be sailing across the ocean to join my husband soon, why not utter the very thing we all longed to say to her, troublemaking sorceress that she was? She would have cursed me, and although I never believed in her silly proclamations, she would have cursed my family as well. Best not to set the table for trouble, which finds its own way soon enough. Still, it was breathtaking faith to promise myself to a picture of a man who came to me, married me, gave me a child, and promptly left us again with the promise he would send for us as soon as he could. He wrote to us, sent money, but we had already forgotten his face. I thought the sky should have been coursing with swallows on the day of our departure. We spent most of the passage on the little deck outside of steerage where I wasn't supposed to be, but that was the only place I didn't feel sick. Ju and I shared a windowless space with 3 other women, one of whom had barley breath and didn't wash her armpits carefully enough. The other 2 had the best palates only because they had gotten there first. I could swear the last one was a prostitute, sent for her by Dottie, as she kept referring to him. Not that we weren't all being sent into the keeping of men we barely knew or had never even met. In that close cabin, steeped in the smell of anxiety, I thought I would go mad with sickness and restlessness. On the steerage deck, the salt spray coated my face and throat and hair. Thank goodness my cabin mates were too sick or depressed to disturb us here. I had worn the light brown muslin Auntie had sent to me, but I stood hatless and gloveless so I could breathe. Jew wrapped his arms around my waist, his face burrowed into the folds of my skirt. Although I had been sick earlier, I leaned into the forward movement, into the wind and sky, urging the ship onward, utterly filled with, if blind to, my future. I licked the spray from my lips like tears. I've been dreaming. I am still my mother's only child. She bathes me, perhaps for the last time, in the wooden baby tub. She will wash my scalp as well. To calm me down, she loosens my braids by massaging her fingers up and down my scalp and behind my ears. As a young girl, I had a recurring dream of seeing my mother's body in the big wooden tub, her skin pale against the water-stained sides. I approached the tub, always with the thought, here is my mother. She never rests, but here she is, in repose. Then, upon closer inspection, I discovered that, of course, she's not resting at all. That's not rest. No one promises actual swallows on the day. Some years, snow still clings in patches or the birds descend but nest further inland. The weather you can always count on, however. In all the years of my life, the day has featured a brisk and airy blue with a breeze that gallops down from the snowy peaks and sunshine that makes your heart whoop and sing. In preparation, we do the year's second cleaning. You take everything out, mats, lamps, grain sacks, babies, sandals, linens, and crockery into the courtyard. The older girls go in and wash everything down, sweep and pack the floor. The younger girls tend to the chickens and babies. Then we cook. Then we walk in the fields and eat flower-shaped cakes. Then we feast. Then we walk some more. If you make a sauce, it tastes better than ever on this day. If you plant a seed, it will grow strong and tall. If you take medicine, you are supposed to live a long life free of illness. Ju and I were quarantined for 4 days, although they allowed Sintide in to see us. He waited with Ju while they performed my physical exam. 2 male doctors, one old and one young. They lacked a Korean translator that day, and only after much miscommunication did they realize that a Chinese translator would not do. After that, they didn't even try to explain procedures or why I had to urinate into a cup. Then a nurse tried to tug on my underpants. Crabs, she explained, raising her fingers like little pinchers. I shook my head no. She has to check, someone must have said. When the nurse saw my soiled rags, she disposed of them and presented me with a box of new ones. It is true that my husband is both hardworking and good-hearted, as his auntie had led me to believe. In my short time with him back home, I found these statements to be true. But you'd better believe I did not recognize him when he came for us at the port 3 years later, and he looked like somebody's grandfather, already stooped in the spine and graying fast. In my heart, I cannot blame him, this man who honored his commitment to me through letters over 10 long years before we had even met, and 3 more after our marriage. He is not unhandsome even now, but he looks a bit used up for the age of 34. I ask you, is that what this country does to a man? In the night, when my husband turns and places his hand on my stomach, I am ready for him. He thinks it is his idea, but I believe that I can will him to place it there. I can will him to place his hand on me, but I cannot will his tenderness. That is his own. In this respect, I have been fortunate. Be a bird. "Be a bird," my father would shout to us as we ran around the courtyard, our arms flung wide, our hair flying, chickens pecking at our toes. He took great delight in us. We thought him strange and fascinating, this tall non-farmer with tidy hands who worked all day shuffling papers for the Japanese and was hardly ever allowed to come home. That's why he died so far away, a man the age my husband is now, who spared us our way of life by leaving it. The missionaries gave him a Christian burial, which was all right with my mother because the missionaries had taught us to read. My teacher's name was Penelope Starling, a name I could never pronounce correctly. Penelope told me books were like birds because through them your mind could soar. Some days, Ju and I head down Geary Boulevard toward the American Produce and Sundries stand instead of down Minette to Chin's Grocery. There's so much to look at there, including a variety of packaged cakes and cereals, boxed antiseptic bandages for small wounds, and a number of products for styling hair. American women hold their heads up very high and rather forward, as though they are rushing to get to the next place. One yellow-haired woman in good shoes shops every morning at 10 a.m. I have observed her because we are invisible to her. Her little boy, a round eye with yellow hair, walks up to Ju every day and pulls up at the corner of his eyes, saying, "Chinky, chinky Chinaman, riding on a rail. Along came a cowboy and cut off his tail." Ju is terrified at the thought of growing a tail. The boy's mother seems exasperated with her son's behavior, but she never tries to do anything about it. So I asked Mrs. Isla Flack, our sponsor, to teach me the English for "you look better that way." The next time that yellow-haired boy pulled up at the corners of his eyes, that's exactly what I told him. "You look better that way." It made him cry, but only because he was shocked that I could speak. His mother seemed equally astounded. "Aren't you going to do something?" she demanded of the shopkeeper. A gentle-souled Hadjukin, he merely shrugged his shoulders. The woman rushed her child away from us. "Great. Now I'm a crazy woman." Once upon a time, there was a king who had 6 daughters. When his wife was heavy with his 7th child, naturally he expected a son. Disappointed yet again, he sent the infant away with a servant instructed to leave her to die in the elements. The princess child was found by an old couple who raised her as a healer. One day they brought her a bowl filled with clear water. "Look upon your father, child," they told her. She saw a very sick man. She returned to the valley where her father lay close to death, sent everyone away from his bedside, and nursed him from her bag of herbs. In the morning, her father was restored to health. All the kingdom rejoiced, and the father begged forgiveness of his 7th daughter, welcoming her back with open arms. I'd always loved that story of the 7th daughter whose absence filled the household. My older cousins liked to act it out as a game. "Pick me," I always insisted, in love with the idea of the princess's magical childhood. "Banish me." Mrs. Isla Flack says that the wives of missionaries and immigrants have something in common. We are both strong women. Don't speak to me of strong women. Where my mother comes from, there's a whole island of them. Women with powerful limbs and voluminous lungs who dive for their food in the ocean and can hold their breath for an unheard of duration. My grandmother was one of the Chejuhenyo of Chejudo, the island of wind, rocks, and women. She spoke a traditional dialect difficult to understand. Although she had sight, her eyes looked like those of a blind woman's, deep and dark, focusing on everything and nothing. My grandmother's eyes turned cloudy in her old age, seeing more than she could say. Mother said that's what comes from dwelling in the depths, holding your breath to bursting time and again. Mrs. Isla Flack tells my husband rather wistfully that when she was a girl, she dreamed of sailing to France. To France? When I was a girl, I dreamed of sailing to the islands of turtles and children and the island of girls with their faces to the moon. There isn't any island of turtles and children, my mother would say. So I never told her about any of the other islands, the island of scheming sisters and other fools, the island of lepers and Japanese whores, the island of mudangs and other pests, the island of banished princesses. Swallows return. There's not a year when they haven't. Your faith in them, or lack of it, makes not the slightest difference to them. They make it a point to get home. Only maybe what's home to me is away for them, or wherever they alight is home, or all places are away and no place is home. It is almost too much. 3 days ago, we all became aware of a smell in the apartment that turned from unpleasant to offensive to unspeakable. Neither Sinte nor I could locate the source. Perhaps a rat had expired behind the stove or something had happened next door. When we passed in the hallway, neighbors began to look at one another with questioning, troubled glances. Who was responsible? None of us contacted the landlord. 3 days ago, Ju had found a stunned bird on the sidewalk. Its wing hung limp, turned like an inside-out umbrella. One eye had been crushed or eaten, the other stared ahead, unblinking and resigned. I scooped it up with a paper bag and threw it in a crate of refuse in the alley. At this, Ju let out a gasping cry. I'd never heard from him. Still, I ordered him to leave it alone. Later, somehow, he must have retrieved the bird, his first act of outright disobedience. It was only when I was in tears at the mysterious stench that Ju led me to his little bureau. In the top drawer was the bird, wrapped in Ju's own paisley handkerchief with a wad of cotton to rest its head. After that, little Ju wanted to be held all day. He couldn't wrap his chubby legs around my waist tightly enough. It's because my waist is disappearing. I'm expecting again. Hunger is good. I feel hungry today. That's excellent news, Mrs. Isla Flack will say today. If today is the day she will drop in on me. If I can, I make my way from one physical sensation to another. For instance, I lie here awake knowing that in about an hour, little Ju will be up. Beside me, my husband's sleep is as steady as a train chugging through the countryside. In precisely 45 minutes before the sun has come up, he will jump into the back of a pickup with his friend Murillo and 6 other men and be driven through the flattest, driest, most disappointing landscape you can imagine to a field where he will pick the strawberries, green beans, heads of lettuce, and squash that we ourselves can rarely afford to buy. I remember lying awake in our room at the back of my mother's inn just before the baby started awake with little bleating cries of hunger. The anticipation of Ju's down-scented scalp, the baby doughy scent of his pudgy limbs already tickled in my nostrils like citrus and set my heart to a faster beat. My nipples prickled awake and my breast started to fill. I'd leak a little just lifting him to my breast, and as his mouth opened and my milk let down, I was grateful for the sealed-off world of our making, for the physical trivialities of our day linking one moment to the next. The door to our world is so much wider now. I hand over fist my way through the sometimes busy, sometimes too quiet hours. One more passage. Swallows return, always, always. But when you think about it, men almost never do. Centuries ago, a Dutch sailor took his ship around the Cape of Siopikoji into the heart of a storm. The ship capsized, but Captain Hendrik Hamel, his crew of 14 survivors, and a hound were found stunned and gasping with thirst upon waking on the beaches of Jeju-do. All were fed, examined, restored to health, and then imprisoned, excepting the hound. For the sailors had entered the land of the Hermit King and unwittingly sealed their fate. The king did not suffer the departure of strangers. Today, as they do every year, swallows alight in Busan, in Pyongyang, in Seoul, on Jeju-do. Today, I became an exile. The Immigration Act has sealed the borders indefinitely to everyone on the globe. Those who are in the United States cannot get back with any reasonable expectation of reentry. If you left a wife behind, too bad. If you hoped your family might join you, think again. It is over for you, over for them those days. Think of Captain Hamel. living out his days in a place he had never intended to stay, of how he made do with the life he had found there among people who took a long time to figure out how to accept him. What must he have thought as he floated on a broken piece of a ship's siding to the shore of his new country, birds swooping and flitting overhead, skimming the surf, alighting on his head or shoulder, his hair and clothing stiff with the salt of the sea.
Thank you, Carol. That was really beautiful. Okay, so hello. I hope you're all enjoying all the readings today. It's been wonderful to hear everyone. I'm kind of out of the writing and reading game at the moment, so it's really nice to kind of get back and be connected with everyone again, especially as I'm just not even in this world anymore. It's weird. Anyways, so it's my pleasure to introduce a talented and insightful writer whose work has left a lasting impact on both young adult and adult literature, and also our fellow Fresno State MFA alumni, Janet Nichols Lynch. Thank you. And she's written 17 books, so more than any of our other alumni, so that's amazing. And let's see, so including her most recent work, which was a children's historical novel, Ellen of Allensworth, which was published earlier this year, which is on sale in our little bookshop over there, hint, hint. And also acclaimed novels, Addicted to Her, Messed Up, and Peace is a Four-Letter Word. Janet's latest novel, which is being published this month? November. Okay, November. I got a little sneak peek and I was able to read that. And it's called More to Life, and that will be published by Legacy Book Press. And it is a story about a retired school teacher, Colette Corbin, that is reluctantly forced into assisted living, where she unexpectedly forms complex relationships with a contrarian feminist, an opioid-addicted neighbor, an Alzheimer's-stricken novelist, and even a new romantic interest, Harry. As she navigates family tensions, hidden secrets, and late-life love, Colette learns that aging brings not just challenges, but also surprising joys and meaning. Her stories often explore the complexities of identity, mental health, relationships, and resilience, and all told through authentic voices that truly resonate with her readers and with myself. Her characters are real, flawed, and unforgettable, making her books not only compelling, but also deeply relatable. To shorten that up, whether you're here as a reader, a writer, or simply someone who enjoys a powerfully well-told story, please join me in giving a warm welcome to Janet Nichols Lynch.
Thank you very much. I did publish, or have published, 2 books this year, and one is my historical children's novel, Ellen of Allensworth, and I'll just tell you a little bit about that, and I'm going to read from More to Life. So, raise your hands if you've been to Colonel Allensworth Historic State Park, and keep them up, and if you've heard of Allensworth, raise your hands. Okay, thank you very much. So those of you that don't know, Allensworth was established in 1908, and it's the only town in California completely owned and governed by African Americans. And so I visited once before, and so a little bit of history is it went, the wells went dry and the train depot left, and so it kind of faded away in the 1930s, and in fact it even disappeared off the face of California until 1976, when a past resident, Ed Pope, went to the state of California and turned it into an historic park. And so I finally got around to visiting Allensworth about 8 years ago, and as soon as I walked the streets, I conjured this African-American child who leaves the world of prejudice behind and lives in freedom joyfully at the very early 20th century. Of course, Ellen plays the piano, like a lot of my characters play the piano, and she wants to learn Scott Joplin's Maple Leaf Rag. And so I fictionalized a lot of the early residents of Allensworth, including her teacher, Professor Payne. Professor Payne is a college graduate, but he cannot get any job except sweeping out a bank in Los Angeles because the state of California did not hire black teachers until the 1950s. And also, then when Ellen has trouble with her reading, she is tutored by none other than Colonel Allensworth himself. Coming up, October 11th, is the rededication of the park, and I'll be reading from Ellen that day. And if you've never been to the park, I encourage you to go that day because there's a lot going on. There's entertainment, food, music, history, and it's a really great day to visit the park. And so now I'd like to read from More to Life, Chapter 1. So this is where you've brought me to die. Mom, an old folks home, assisted living. A meadow is not shady. There may be trees around it, but it is not on it. It's in full sun. Mom, shady meadow sounds nice. My daughter, Brooke, pauses in the task of unpacking a cardboard box to use the back of her hand to push her oversized glasses up her ridiculous chalk nose. In her late 40s, she still wears her hair like a teenager, draped down her back nearly to her waist. She has to color it now. Her lips are swollen with Botox. Fashion has always been a girl's worst enemy. It's too expensive here. I could live to 104 like Beverly Cleary. That would take a chunk out of your inheritance. Mom, I don't want your money. I want you to be safe and comfortable. Oh, these are nice. She holds up a pair of pink floral panties before folding them and setting them in a dresser drawer. I gaze out the window at the gray, bleak sky, the bare branches of a tree, black sticks. January is the cruelest month, not April, bursting with green and sprouting new life. Oh God, spring. How will I ever endure until spring and on in this depressing hellhole? Oh, Al, where are you when I needed you the most? He would have never stood for my moving in here, despite our shattered marriage. I hang up a few clothes I've kept, ones I usually wear, out of several closets full of clothes I had that I might wear. The hangers on the bed rattle like a pile of bones. That will be me soon enough. Not soon enough? I have become ambivalent about the issue. The room is so small, it seems the dirty pink walls are pressing in on me. The carpet is brown to hide food stains, shit, vomit, blood. My stomach heaves. What a dump, I mutter under my breath. Mom, this was your choice. Sort of. When I was released from the hospital and Brooke came to take me home, she brought me to her house instead of mine. She said my house had been sold, something she said I had agreed to, even though I had no recollection of it. A sorry lesson the aged have to learn. Careful whom you give power of attorney to, especially if it's your only kid who happens to be an attorney. We toured several other assisted living residents in the Sacramento area before I decided on Shady Meadow. The cheaper ones smelled like pee, old people's pee. That's where I draw the line. The gorgeous, luxurious ones which allowed pets cost an arm and a leg. Brooke crosses her arms and tilts her head to assess our progress. This place isn't so bad. It's really starting to look like home. Do you think prisoners say that about their cells? My full house of 7 rooms has been compressed into one. Crammed into this room is my bedroom set, recliner, music cabinet, and a shadow box of cat figurines. That's it. My photo albums have been reduced to some damn lighted digital frame that changes photographs seconds before I'm able to focus on the previous one. Gone too, my walls of books. True, I probably would have never reread them, but they are like old friends I will never see again, but I know I have. I had hoped to skip this stage of my life. My fervent wish was to peacefully drift into death in my own home. What am I supposed to do here? You'll make friends, Brooke chirps. Old people live here. Her face blooms into a smile. She has a beautiful smile. Everyone has always said so. I could play the piano. I reel my head dramatically around the room. Where is my piano? Honey, someone has stolen my Baldwin Grand. Oh, Mom, you barely touched that piano. This is a sensitive subject with me. Tinfoil against a filling. I need my piano with me. The broad smile of the keyboard so comforting, the arrangement of white and black familiar, organized, the hulking piece of furniture filling up most of my living room, my life. Too bad they didn't take the music cabinet with it, Brooke muses. Then you could have fit in your other nightstand. I peer at her from the tops of my eyes. Why do I need 2 nightstands? I'm only one person. It would make the room look symmetrical. Brooke points an accusing finger. That mahogany cabinet doesn't match your walnut bedroom set. Why do you want to hold on to a bunch of old music books? You're right, my darling. Appearances are everything. Where's my mother's symphonies? I told you, in storage. Storage in the recycle bin? I imagine a young composer erasing my mother's crackling yellowed scores and replacing them with new notes, although I know recycling music doesn't work that way. It's unlikely the world will ever hear my mother's brilliant music again. Storage is storage. It's generous of you to wait until I'm dead before you trash Grandma Mare's music. What, Mom? Brooke is ready to bolt, her purse strap slung over her shoulder. She has plunged deep into the recesses of her phone and is poking around in there. She isn't gone, but her mind has left the building. That's the way she's always been. At Disneyland, she'd be asking when we were going to the zoo. Where's Billy Whiskers? I lean against the bed, bend down and extend my hand. Here, kitty, kitty, kitty. I wonder if my sarcasm could be mistaken for dementia. WW is in good hands. He's probably found a new companion at Best Friends Animal Society. Like I'm already dead. We'll see if we can get him to come visit. The cheer in Brooke's tone sounds forced. I snort. Cats do not visit. They have the memory of ants. Thanks to you, WW has already forgotten about me. Brooke's face crumples, her puffy lower lip jutting out. Good. This girl has caused me plenty of heartbreak over the years. Mom, I'm trying to take care of you as best I can. I know we have to make some concessions for your condition. Fuck my condition. I go over to the dresser, pull out a pair of socks. I unbundle them, lift my right foot, teetering on my left. Mom, sit down to put on your socks. Don't tell me how to put on my damn socks. Mom, Brooke, dumb name, just one of my many regrets. Why not river, or stream, or muddy ditch? Trickle, I try aloud, telling myself a joke. What, Mom? Her thumbs flash over the text she is composing. She sends it off and pockets her phone. Gotta run, don't overdo, get plenty of rest. That's all I have to do. See you soon, Mom. She kisses my cheek and escapes out the door. Bye, Trickle. I remove Tuxedo Kitty from his shadow box compartment and stroke his head, singing softly, mournfully, out in the wild world, kitty, pretty kitty. Then I'd like to read a little bit later on in the novel where Colette meets Harry, another resident who's interested in music, and this is an interaction she has with Harry. When I hear piano playing coming from the dining room, I nudge aside the drawn accordion doors to peek inside. It's Harry playing his Bach on a lovely ebony Yamaha Grand. Well, he's sort of playing it. I creep into the room, slide into a chair, hoping not to be noticed. Harry leans forward, his nose inches from the music rack. He lifts his magnifying glass and peers through it and his thick glasses. He places his hands over the keyboard, his fingers long and curved. He plays through the first statement of the subject, quite musically, a lilt to the contours of a phrase, but then his left hand enters and he falters. Abruptly, he swivels his torso around, startling me. He taps the frame of his glasses. Macular degeneration. That's a shame. I can read the notes when I know what they are. He resumes playing, gets a bit further in the music before he breaks down again. He chuckles as he takes up his magnifying glass. Luckily, pianists memorize. Right, but fugues are the devil. I like what polyphony does to the brain. Keeps the wires straight. Yes, it kept insanity at bay for Robert Schumann, at least for a while. Do you play? Not anymore. I shift to the edges of my chair to rise up. Excuse me for intruding. I just heard the piano and, well, I'll leave you to it. He twists around and his whole face blooms into a smile. Please stay. It's good to know another classical pianist around here. I just told him I don't play, but I nod. All right, for a little while. He's not ashamed of his limitations. I admire that, envy it. I've always been challenged in forgiving myself for falling short of my own expectations. You can't be great at everything, Al used to tell me. I'd say, I'd like to be great at one thing. Al would take me in his arms and try to hug and kiss away the feelings of inadequacy. He was a good husband, until he wasn't. You're a great teacher, he told me. Those that can't teach. I quote, and he countered, and there are those that can't teach. I know that, but I've always felt teaching is a pedestrian talent. Harry lifts his music off his rack and holding it close to his face in his right hand, plays the left hand part of the fugue's exposition. Then he shifts the music to his left hand and plays with his right. He replaces the music on the rack and, leaning forward, attempts both hands with some success. I am so engrossed in his process that I don't realize someone else has entered the room. I smell her presence first, cigarette smoke, an essence of perspiration and pee. Stop that racket, you old shit! The woman screeches. She wheezes, clutches her throat, and coughs. I recognize her voice immediately. My next-door neighbor. This is the first time I've gotten a look at her, standing beside me now, weaving on unsteady feet. Her moon face is puffy, her wild hair a pinkish color with white roots. She wears a baggy housecoat, stained with dribbles of food and coffee. Stop embarrassing yourself. Use the keyboard and earphones in your own damn room. Harry seems to know who is addressing him without even glancing over his shoulder. In an even, calm tone, he says, I like this piano. It has a nice touch. It's the one they're going to use for the talent show. The woman snorts. That leaves you out. Harry resumes his piano playing as if he doesn't hear her. Incensed, she raises her voice. I'm going to complain to the management. Harry drops his hands into his lap and turns to her. You do that, soup thrower. I hate you. I hate you, the crone screams in frustration. She turns and staggers out of the room. Harry twists on his piano bench and says sheepishly, sorry you had to witness that. Soup thrower? I repeat incredulously. Didn't like it, I guess. Harry's comment is so dry I burst out in a loud guffaw. No joke for the family. They had to pay for the carpet cleaning. I shake my head. That's pathetic. Harry slightly lifts one shoulder. A sad state of affairs. I feel sorry for her. I look to the door and back to Harry. She's my next door neighbor, I think. I hear her through the walls, ranting like a crazy woman. I hope my body goes before my mind does. Oh, I don't know. The folks with Alzheimer's can create their own reality. They can time travel, see dead people they've missed for so long. It might be fun. And they can be mean, violent. I hear her through the walls, ranting to her sons. Dottie doesn't have Alzheimer's. She's a drug addict. Opioids. I shift my feet, wondering if I should speak my mind or let it go. That's no excuse, I blurt. It's horrible the way she treated you. You should not have to put up with her verbal abuse. They should kick her out. She can't hurt me. Harry turns to his box. After a few more minutes, I quietly slip away without disturbing him. Thank you.